I'm going to give you a couple of numbers, or a couple of columns of numbers. So for instance, here's a number 1, here's a number 2, here's a number 3, here's a number 4. This is the first column, all right? And then on this column, I'm going to give you the number 3 and the number 6, all right? Now, I have two columns of numbers. I need to label them something. Okay, I can label them column A and column B, or column number 1 and column number 2. But I'm going to choose to label this column X and this label column Y. I don't want you to worry too much that I'm using letters here. Don't get worried about letters, in a math class. It's okay. We're just using the letter X to represent that column and the letter Y to represent another column. That's all we're doing. Okay? And I'm also going to tell you that for column X, the rule that I've kind of used to generate these is I'm basically adding 1. So you see I add 1 each time. And then over here, for this guy, I'm adding, for this column, 3. So you see, that's the rule here. I've got 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. Here's 3 and 6. So this would be the problem. And the first part of the problem is trying to figure out how to complete the table. Now, I've given a lot of the table to you here, but we need to complete the table. So if we're going to complete this table, this is already done. We're only putting 4 numbers in the table, so this is basically finished. How would we complete this one? Well, if we're adding 3 each time, 3 plus 3 is 6. 6 plus 3 would mean that 9 goes here. And then 9 plus 3 would mean that 12 goes here. So we're adding these in to complete the table. Now we have 2 columns. One we're calling X, one we're calling Y, and we have 4 numbers in each column. All right, and this guy follows a rule where we're increasing by 1, and this guy follows a rule that we're increasing by 3. Now what we want to do is write down what we call ordered pairs. So I'm going to write that over here. I'm going to say ordered pairs. All right, all it means is you're trying to put the numbers together and kind of group them together with a comma, because what we're saying here is this is kind of a table here. The 1, even though this is a column, the 1 goes with the 3, the 2 goes with the 6, the 3 goes with the 9, and the 4 goes with the 12. You have to kind of hang on with me here as we go through this. The first problem may not make a lot of sense, but as we go through it, you'll understand what I'm trying to drive at. We want to do an ordered pair for this first one. So the ordered pair, you put the first column number here with a comma, and then the second number you put right next to it. So the ordered pair for this line is 1, 3. Very simple, right? The ordered pair for this line is 2, 6, right? The ordered pair for this line is 3, 9, and the ordered pair for this line is 4, 12. So what we've done is we've generated 4 ordered pairs. The concept of an ordered pair is just a couple of rules that kind of go with columns, much as we've done here, and we're grouping the rows into what we call these ordered pairs. Now, the reason that we're trying to do this, really, is we want to figure out what the relationship is. I mean, we know how we generated this column, and we know how we wrote the numbers down for this column. But let me ask you, do you see any pattern here? Here's 1 and 3, here's 2 and 6, here's 3 and 9, and here's 4 and 12. Is there any kind of rule that you can come up with that relates the first number to the second number, that relates this number to this number, that relates this number to this number? In other words, is there a single rule that we can use that relates both numbers on either side of the comma there? All right? Well, if you look at this, 1 times 3 is 3, 2 times 3 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 3 is 12. So we see that there is a common rule here. So the rule that we're after, here is that y, which is the second column here, which is the second set of numbers here, y was equal to 3, and we use a little x here, x, 3 times x. So the number here in this column was equal to 3 times the first column. That's all it really means here. So if you want to write it in words, it would be 3 times x. Now you see there's a real problem here. Whenever we're using x and y to label columns like this, it's a little confusing to have multiplication with an x. So when you start doing this kind of thing in math, the way you really write it is 3, instead of putting an x for multiplication, we put a dot x, 3 times x. The dot also means multiplication. So if you want to write it in terms of words, you would say 3 times x, and here you would say 3 dot x, which also means 3 times x. And what you're basically saying here is we have a couple of columns of numbers here, And when we read across, we have found a single rule that lets us predict what y is going to be equal to at any place here. All we do is we take what the corresponding x is and multiply by 3. 12 is 4 times 3. 9 is 3 times 3. 6 is 2 times 3. And 3 is 1 times 3. So for every ordered pair, we have figured out that the second number is just 3 times the first number for every one of these things. Now, let me ask you a question. Why do you think it's 3 there? Why do you think that it's 3 times, not 4 times or 5 times? Well, the reason is because when we generated this column, we added 3 for every one of these guys. So when you have a pattern where you're increasing by a certain number, a lot of times it falls out as multiplication like that. So I know that this kind of problem is probably quite new to you, and I know that it may not make a ton of sense at first, so I want to just kind of leave this problem for now. Let's do another one. We'll get some practice as we go along. I think you'll find out that it's not a hard concept to wrap your brain around. So let me give you the first part here. We're going to have an x and a y column. For the x column, we're going to add 1. That's going to be the rule. And for the y column, we're going to add 5, like this. And what I'm going to give you is 1, 2, 3, and 5, and 10. And we want to fill out this, this table. First of all, we want to fill it out so we have 4 rows there. We want to write down the ordered pairs that we have, and we want to see if we can figure out a rule that helps us relate the ordered pairs, the numbers inside of the parentheses, to one another. All right, so we go here. You can see clearly the rule is 1, 2, 3, so the next one's going to be 4 in the pattern. Here we're adding 5, so 5, 10, this will be 15, and this will be 20. And we're going to stop there because we're only trying to find 4 of these guys here. So for the ordered pairs, let's write them down. Well, we open up a parentheses and we write x, comma, y. So here's 1, comma, 5. This one is 2, comma, 10. This one is 3, comma, 15. And this one is 4, comma, 20. So all we're doing here is we have columns here, and we're writing down the ordered pairs, which is just writing down what we have, and we're separating by a comma. That's what we call ordered pair, when you have parentheses with 2 numbers inside and a comma. They're kind of related to one another. We're kind of keeping them together there inside the parentheses with a comma. Now we want to figure out if we can find a rule. What would be a rule? And when I say a rule, I'm trying to figure out how the numbers inside the parentheses are related. In other words, how is x and y related? Well, can you find a rule that would relate how 1 and 5 are related, then how 2 and 10 are related, then 3 and 15 are related, then 4 and 20 are related? And when you think about it, 1 times 5 is 5, 2 times 5 is 10, 3 times 5 is 15, 4 times 5 is 20. So in all cases, for all of these ordered pairs, all we're doing is multiplying the first number by 5. That gives us the second number. So the rule is y, which is just the second number, is equal to 5 times whatever x is, which is just the first number. So without using words here, it's 5 dot x. Now we don't use, in this case, x to mean multiplication, because it gets confusing like we showed before, since we're using x to represent one of the columns here. So we can just use the dot. This also means multiplication. What this means is that the second column of numbers is always equal to 5 times whatever's in the first column. That's all it means. And again, why is it 5 times? Because in this case, our pattern was adding 5. So it's going to frequently happen whenever we do things like that. All right, now let's go off to the next problem. I think by now you're probably starting to get the hang of it, but let's just get a little more practice as we go along here. So again, I'm going to have an x and a y column. For x, the rule is going to be that I'm adding 3 here. And for y, the rule is going to be that I'm adding 6 to everything in here. And what I'm going to give you to start out with is 3 and 6 and 6 and 12. And we need to fill in the table. So if I'm filling in the table, I'm adding 3. 6 plus 3 is 9, and then 9 plus 3 is 12. And then over here, if I'm filling in this table, I'm adding 6. 12 plus 6 is going to give me 18, and 18 plus 6 is going to give me 24. So I filled out the table down to 4 rows, which is all I care about right now. And then I want to do the ordered pairs. So if I'm reading across, the ordered pair here is going to be 3, 6. The ordered pair here is going to be 6, 12. The ordered pair here is going to be 9, 18. The ordered pair here is going to be 12, and 21. Those are the 4 ordered pairs, and it's just basically copying the table over. And right here, of course, this is not 21, this should be 24. I just copied it wrong whenever I wrote it over there. So 12 and 24. So now what we're trying to do is find a rule to represent how the first column is going to be related to whatever's in the second column. Let's see if we can figure that out. 3 and 6, 6 and 12, 9 and 18, and 12 and 24. As you say those numbers, you should be thinking about your multiplication tables. How are they related? Well, 3 times 2 is 6, 6 times 2 is 12, 9 times 2 is 18, 12 times 2 is 24. So the rule is that y, which is whatever's in the second column, is equal to 2 times whatever's in the first column, which is what we're calling x, because this is y and this is x. So whatever's in the second column is 2 times whatever is in the first column. And that works for everything. 9 times 2 is 18, 12 times 2 is 24, and so on. So this is the rule that we are after. And you might say, why is it 2 times? Well, in this case, we're adding by 3. In this case, we're adding by 6. 3 times 2 is 6, and that is really where the 2 ends up coming from. But I don't want you to think about it like that. I don't want you to start thinking about, oh, I'm adding here, and what's the rule going to be? The way you do it is you fill your tables out, you write your ordered pairs, and then you look at the corresponding numbers, and you'll be able to find a rule that satisfies it. Okay? So let's go ahead and do one last one, which will give us a little bit of extra practice. Now this one is going to be a little bit different. Here we have x, and the rule here is we're going to subtract 3 to make that column, and then for y, we're going to be subtracting 1 for that column. So this one's a little bit different along the way, and what I'm going to give you to start is 21 and 18 and 7 and 6. That's what I'm giving you, and so what we need to do now is fill this out. So 21 minus 3 is 18, 18 minus 3 is 15, and then again 15 minus 3 is 12. So here we finish that column, and then here 7 minus 6 is or 7 minus 1 is 6, 6 minus 1 is 5, 5 minus 1 is 4. This follows the subtracting 1 rule. So we have our columns put together. What would be our ordered pairs? Well, our ordered pairs for this column, or for this row here, is 21, 7. Notice we always write the x first, and then we write the y second. Here we have the first number, 18, 6. Here we have 15, 5. And here we have 12, 4. So now we have 4 ordered pairs. All right? Now we need to ask ourselves, how is x and y related? And what we're really trying to do here is we're trying to find a rule that makes sense. 21 and 7, 18 and 6, 15 and 5, 12 and 4. We have to find a rule that's going to relate those numbers together. That will be true for all of those. Well, we know for 12, 12 divided by 3 is 4, right? We know for 15 divided by 3 is 5. We know that 18 divided by 3 is 6. We know that 21 divided by 3 is 7. So x number, the first number, is always divided by 3. So the way you can do that is you can say that the y number is equal to whatever the x number is divided by 3. This is the rule that we're after, because it's telling us how do we calculate y given any value of x. We just take the x number divided by 3, take the x number divided by 3, take the x number divided by 3, take the x number divided by 3. So the rule that we have is x divided by 3.